inside the book. Head over to the website to add your name and reserve your copy. And a big thank you to all of you who have contributed to the book so far.
For many years, Wild Earth has taken viewers from around the world to the Mara Triangle, a place of majestic beauty and abundant wildlife. But it wasn't always like this. Before 2001, it was infested with poachers. Illegal harvesting and hunting was rife. Now the situation couldn't be more different. The hard work and dedication of the Mara Conservancy has revolutionized this magical land. But now, the loss of revenue from tourism has created a grave crisis. The Mara Conservancy needs help if they are to continue protecting the reserve and supporting the local communities whose livelihood depend on its survival.
I got into wildlife filmmaking because of a passion for nature and a notion that I could make a difference. Helping others fall in love with nature brings meaning to what I do. It's also a lot of fun. A couple of times per week we receive some very heartfelt messages from viewers telling us about how Wild Earth has made a difference in their life, whether it's helped them through a difficult period or simply helped them to reconnect with nature. I think that's why we do what we do.
This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Good morning and welcome to the Sunrise Safari, coming to you live here from Djuma Private Game Reserve in the Sabi Sands, where everything is rather still in this early morning, overcast conditions. Good morning and hello. We are going to be out and about seeing if we can track down any tracks. Just read the morning newspaper this morning, see what is going on. Lauren is going to make a turn past the hyena den. We will have Nikki and Paul out in Ngala. Nikki is going to be trying to track down some lions with a touch of leopard in there. Josh and BK out in Tolu are out and about seeing what Swali Kalahari can provide. And Mike and Johanna out in Pradens on bushwalk. And we welcome you on board your live African safari. Welcome to Djuma Private Game Reserve in the Sabi Sands, everybody, where it is a lovely 18 degrees Celsius, 65 degrees Fahrenheit, with 2% chance of precipitation. And of course, you also have the Dream Team on directing shift this morning. You've got Jared and Elton with the Sun Watching Tech. And hello, boys. Good morning. My name is Steve Falconbridge, joined by Davi Sita on camera, and we are always very excited to have you with us. And don't forget, you can ask us questions using the hashtag WildEarth, or you can throw them in on the YouTube chat stream. Alternatively, you can send them through via email. If you are under the age of 18, get your parents to send them through using kidquestions@wildearth.tv. Alternatively, go over to the website, register. If you have not registered yet, you can do so and go over and submit your questions on the live safari page. Now, we heard some birds just making lots of noises around Galago. So we just came into the area to see what was making them so upset. And so far, we haven't found anything of interest. So we'll just do a little cursory look around here, see what transpires. We would really like to find the Princess Tlalamba, so I'm probably going to head over towards Quarry Pan Central Road, have a little scratch around there for some tracks. Last, she was apparently seen last week heading into that drainage line, and well, maybe, just maybe, we'll have some luck finding her. But it is Easter Sunday after all, everybody. I hope you're all enjoying a wonderful, relaxed morning or afternoon or day or whatever it might be. It is cloudy and overcast here. Let's see what the weather is prevailing across all the properties.
What a fantastic start to the morning. Good morning, everyone. I'm just having some chats and my coffee with Mr. Ground Lion here, a predator in its own right. And the name is roughly translated from ancient Greek to mean ground lion. But of course, we call it a chameleon. My name is Lauren. I do have Morgan on camera today. And this is the exact same individual that we showed you last night, or I showed you last night, in the exact same position, in the exact same tree. Now, I'm just going to walk away so I don't disturb him in any way. And I'm saying him, we don't actually know the sex, of course. But a fantastic, fantastic organism that is already camouflaged. Look at that. Look how well he blends in. He doesn't need to camouflage anymore because, of course, he's already camouflaged. And he's waiting on getting some warmth and some solar radiation from the sun in order to go about his day. It's a Flapnic Chameleon. And they are quite territorial. And you will find them, generally speaking, in the same tree time and time again. Now, this one's actually moved trees because his little home got bulldozed, shall we say, by elephants. So he must have dropped to the ground, and then he's obviously just hopped onto the other tree with that prehensile tail and those tongue-like fingers. You know those tongs you use to pick up meat on the barbecue, or the braai, as they say here in South Africa? It's exactly how those little fingers and feet work. And we're getting a really good view at those turret-shaped eyes. So they actually have negative, what we would say, concave lens on their eyes, but their corneas are positive, what we call convex. And this actually allows them to focus their depth perception precisely. So when they do decide to dart that tongue out and catch their prey, they are completely accurate about it. It's not clumsy. They're not going to miss. They've got that depth of perception, so they're able to gauge exactly how far away or how close their prey is and make an accurate hunt. They also don't need both eyes to sort of be looking at the same point, if that makes sense, the same position in order to gauge depth accurately. And they're said to be one of the only sort of vertebrates that can actually focus monocularly. So this means just with one eye, either the left or the right, they can focus to absolute precision and then execute a hunt. Isn't that incredible? Of course, they've got both eyes, but they don't need that. They don't need that to sort of focus and gauge the depth accurately. Nina, chameleons are actually said to sort of be able to see in different spectrums of light. So the human sort of visual capacity is quite limited. And chameleons are said to be able to communicate and also see in UV light, which we of course can in any way, shape or form. So by communicating through the fluorescence of UV light, that ultimately tells you immediately they must be able to see it, because there would be no point in communicating that way if they can't see it. So it's been proved that they can, of course, see well out of the spectrum. I'm not sure about the infrared. I think that's quite a big question in science right now to be able to understand what they can see. But yes, they can see a lot more than we can. They can see in 360 degrees and colours that we couldn't even begin to imagine. But how they normally use their eye is fascinating. So when they see prey, they can move their eyes independently. Look at them go. And they're said to have a tracking eye. So let's just say, for example, he uses his left eye that we can see to track the prey. Then he's able to follow it, and he's able to bring the other eye, which would be his right eye, they call this the converging eye, swing it round to then have both eyes focused on the same thing. So they track with one eye. The brain's computing the images from one eye, and then they'll bring that convergent eye round to try and get a more accurate picture of what's going on. A tracking eye and a convergent eye. Isn't that incredible? Ah, what a fantastic start. I'm going to check the hyena dens, bumble around to see what other magnificent creatures we can find today, and we're going to send you guys across to Nikki to say good morning.
So warm welcome to all our viewers. We're currently watching a pride of lions, and just up here in the tree line we can actually see another lion coming down towards the rest of the pride. You can see those two have their ears pricked up, and pretty soon there's going to be one that's going to join in from the left. Let's just have a look. So I'm Nikki, I'm going to be a ranger here at Ambion Ngala, and on camera we have Paul. So we were looking for these lions the whole morning, and Rowan actually spotted one of them as he was driving past, and as we came, quite a few of them started joining up together again. So I'm going to lean out of the way so you can actually have a look at this one that's now going to join up with the pride. Now And it looks like they were hunting earlier on because I can just hear some impala's alarm calling. And it might have been that these other ones were lying down in the grass here. And the younger ones were actually pushing the impala towards them. But of course, after the impala realized that this was probably a bit of a set trap, they moved away. And because of that, the lions have basically given up and have come and lie down in the grass. But it's so hard to see them when they lie down flat, because all you can see now is the back of their heads and their ears. But some of the youngsters, look at the youngsters that we had earlier in the grass in front of us. I don't think you'll be able to see them. Oh, this one's just gone up, but off to the right there's actually one in the grass. It's probably going to stand up soon once this young male has moved closer towards the rest. So sometimes when they do hunt, they'll leave these youngsters behind and go and hunt, and then of course if they were successful they'll go and call them. Even if not, then they'll come back, call them, and then move on with them. But while we're going to stick around with these lions and see what they're going to be up to this morning, let's head across to Josh at Tswalu Kalahari for his intro.
And good morning, and welcome to a very peaceful and rather beautiful morning at Tswalu Kalahari. So you can see we're starting off our morning here at Treehouse Dam, and we've got a beautiful reflection with a giraffe drinking on the southeastern or southwestern side of the dam. Dawn chorus is going nicely in the background. And it is just the perfect start to a day. And good morning again. My name's Josh, and behind the camera is BK, and we'll be sharing what's going on in the Green Kalahari this morning with you. So definitely a nice peaceful way to start the morning. I prefer coffee, but this giraffe looks like he's having a nice drink of water, and the reflection this morning is nice and clear. Definitely not the most comfortable looking position to drink in, but a small price to pay to be the tallest animal. Every now and then we get this little honk from some African shell ducks. So Liam, how often do giraffes require water? So they will drink every day if they can, but they can go a day or two without drinking. They're not a heavily water-dependent species, but they will definitely drink if the opportunities are there. They are recorded in surviving in very harsh areas, like Etosha and that. But they would definitely prefer to drink every day. We haven't seen any other giraffes, so it looks like this individual's on his own. Some blacksmith lapwings making an absolute racket in the background there. agree with you. It's a very peaceful reflection. Looking slightly distorted with all the movement on the water, but still a stunning reflection there. It's all the vegetation around the dam. It's a very clear sky this morning here at Tswalu. Not a single cloud to be found. We've got a lovely breeding pair of shell ducks deciding to go for a cruise this morning across the lake. Well, the lake might be an exaggeration, the waterhole. To your male having the grey head, your female that white head. They've been fairly resident here at the dam the last few weeks, so be interested to see how long they stick around with us. Looks like our giraffe's having a bit of a look around, see what's going on. He obviously has a little bit of an elevation advantage on us. And there's a nice reflection. Quick nibble before heading off. Very peaceful this morning.
Nestled on the banks of one of the largest lakes in the Sabi Sands lies an award-winning game lodge called Chitwa Chitwa. Many of you will have been on safari here virtually with Wild Earth, but now we are offering you the chance to see it for yourself in person. Sign up to be a Wild Earth explorer before the end of April, and you and a friend could win 3 nights to this luxury lodge. In addition to the unforgettable safaris, you can unwind on the deck, relax in the pool, and even savor the various bush dining experiences. Chitwa's holistic approach to hospitality, with specific emphasis on conservation, will leave you with the very best memories of the African wild. Wild Earth Explorers, it's in your nature.
So in 1998, we had this idea to go and put a live web camera on a waterhole somewhere in the Sabi Sands next to the Kruger National Park. And I approached just about every single landowner, and everybody thought I was completely crazy until I met Yuri and Pippa Moorman.
We thought it was definitely a fun idea and a worthwhile thing to experiment.
And it immediately became a runaway success. And it gave people all around the world the opportunity to watch a little piece of Africa, day and night. Back in 1998, it was the very early stages of the internet. And all we were able to do was to get a 30-second refreshing JPEG out of that camera. But over time, what we began to do is focus more and more on trying to develop this concept of giving people the opportunity to go on safari.
Even though we live just 500 meters up this hill, we still put the camera on to see what's happening.
Absolutely, we watch it ourselves.
Hi, my name is Tristan Dix, and I am a guide here at Djuma Private Game Reserve for Wild Earth. We love connecting you to the African bush, and we always look forward to all of your questions. If you want to ask a question on Wild Earth, you'll need to register on the website. Once registered, go to our live safari page and submit a question below the live feed. Catch up with me on Wild Earth.
So after sitting with the lions for quite a while, you can see there's a new addition to those that were here early on, and that's this big dominant male. So he is part of the Ross males for all our regular viewers. And if you look at his mane, you'll see quite a bit of blonde around the ears, but then just behind the ears to the back, very dark mane. So this is the dark-maned Ross male. And just left of him is the mother of the two younger ones that we saw earlier on. So this male was not with this female and the youngsters. This female was actually looking for hunting opportunity because we only saw the youngsters. And as we followed the youngsters, she was starting to contact call, and then eventually they joined up with her. The two other lionesses came, and then this Ross male came to join up. But it does sound behind us that we can hear some baboons alarm calling, and I wonder if it's not the rest of the pride that's somewhere along the river behind us. Probably the best would be, like, after spending some time here, is to go and investigate and see. Maybe it could be for the other members of the pride, it could be for a leopard that's crossing the riverbed, or maybe walking along a game trail close to where those baboons are. So apparently what I've heard from some of the rangers, so last night, the two Ross males were close together, and the young Birmingham male, so that male that had the limp on the back leg, came close to the pride, and then these males actually chased them. But I don't think they managed to get to him, but they just chased him away from the pride. So it'd be interesting to know where he might be, if he's joined up with the other members of the pride, or if he's by himself at the moment. Justin, they've dominated Ngala for quite a while. The exact number of years, I'm not too sure. I would say probably from all my time here, they've been the dominant pride. And I would say, like, that would have been... I've only been at Ngala since, like, permanently since last year, the beginning of the year. Whereas I remember when I came 3 years ago to help out at some of the lodges here, they were still the dominant pride within this area. So I'm not too sure. Like, I'll probably try and find out a little bit more and then get back to you on that. I'm hoping that this lioness would get up, just so we can see her. You can see it's really difficult in the tall grass when they lie down to see them. And I mean, this isn't as tall as most of the grass on the reserve at the moment, so that's why leopard and lions, when we have seen them, we've seen them in pretty open areas whenever they rested, especially in the riverbeds. Because often if they do lie down in the tall grass like this, it's really hard to spot them unless you're actually tracking them on foot. But even that can prove to be very challenging, especially when the grass is really tall and other animals move through the area, because then you can't really see the grass that was flattened. Was it flattened by the lions? Maybe a buffalo, could have been a herd of elephants. You're not too sure. And like these males here, they do come to the pride quite often. So what happens normally after rain, all their scent would be washed away. So if we have quite a bit of rain in the area, then you'll find that these males would move constantly and just scent mark their territory, warning the other males that this is their area not to come in. And then, of course, if there's other males that try to move into the area, they'll move away from the pride and chase them off. And if they, by doing that, find a possible hunting opportunity and they hunt something, it might be that they could be away from the pride for over a week before they return again. We find it sometimes where these males would be with the pride for quite a while and then leave the pride for maybe a week, maybe even 2 weeks, and then eventually come back to them. So they could leave the pride for more than a certain amount of time. And also what you could find is that with these two males, they might cover more than just this one pride. They might cover 2 or 3 different prides, ones that we don't know off the reserve. And then what could happen is if they with those pride, let's say there's a female and estrus there, or maybe they've made a kill, they could stay away from this pride a lot longer than just 2 weeks. See, this mouse just picked up his head. How's that? How both of them, the male and the female, actually drop their heads at the same time. Now it makes it very, very difficult to see them. Now and again you'll see the tail. So what we'll do is we'll just spend more, like couple more minutes here. But if they're not going to be moving too much, we'll rather use this time to go and search for something like a leopard, or maybe see what those baboons were alarm calling at earlier, But as we enjoy this, let's head across to Mike and let him hear his hello. Righty-ho, what a beautiful morning, a little bit of cloud cover, relatively cool, but I'm sure it'll feel warmer a bit later. Hi everyone, my name is Michael Anderson, behind the camera is Johan, and you're joining us at Eco-Training's Pride Lands Conservancy. We've just left the car, we've just parked it up on a road, a little down the way, and we've walked a couple of meters and found this really awesome little waterhole, which is great to see because it is drying up right now in the bush. As you can see behind, there's a bit of green grass here, but outside of this little drainage line, it's starting to get much, much drier. And it's interesting because we found some very fresh hyena tracks just over here. I don't have my magic wand today, so I'm just using a piece of grass. As you can see, there's a hyena track, and I can tell it's a hyena, and it's relatively fresh because there's 1, 2, 3, 4 squashed, weirdly shaped toes with very prominent claw marks. And at the back of the track here, you can see it's just kind of not symmetrical. There's a big lobe here and a smaller lobe over there. And there's a big mound in the middle, which is quite typical of hyenas. But anyway, this hyena came probably to drink from this water hole right over here. As you can see, the water is a little bit grey, muddy looking. It's not looking particularly nice, but they've got quite a hardy stomach and they're not very fussy. They eat some pretty rotten things. But over there, there's an interesting sign. So if you just follow me just this way, there's a place where elephants, most likely elephants, have been digging in this sand in order to get to filtered, fresh, clean water. Now, it might not only have been elephants, it could also have been the hyena, because I see there's a hyena track also here, but elephants are normally the ones that do something like this, and they certainly would have been the first, because elephants are fussy. They like to eat, or drink, the filtered, clean, fresh, clear water that comes through this river sand. So I'm not going to try and dig right now because it looks like the table of the water has fallen a little bit. It's quite far down to get to where the water table is, just over there. But an awesome morning. The plan is basically to follow this drainage line that you see behind me down in a westerly direction to see
what other animals might be about. We know there was a herd of buffaloes in the area. We know there's lion tracks of a single lioness, could be Lagatha, moving into this area. Don't know where those tracks have gone. And of course, there's always elephants on Pride Lands, as you know. So we're going to do our best. It's much less windy today than it was yesterday, as you might have seen. We didn't go out yesterday afternoon. Far too windy, a bit dangerous. But this morning, hoping for some great success. But in the meantime, I'm going to send you over to Swalu, and we'll let you know if we find anything cool.
So folks, it seems a morning for stunning backdrops and reflections. We went around the dam and noticed that our friend hadn't gone too far. With that back view of the Coronaberg with the sun just coming up and you're getting that golden light, it kind of took our breath away a bit. So we thought we'd sit with him and try and share it with you. A very dark giraffe. Quite an old man by the looks of things. Quite a few knobbles in the front of his head. But how's that for a contrast, that pattern being so distinctive against the light background of the Coronaberg? No matter how many times I watch giraffe feed on these thorn trees, it does amaze me that they don't get a mouthful of spines. You just realize how versatile that tongue is and how thick the skin around those lips must be. But they're well capable of just nibbling the little leaves off in the gaps there. And giving us a bit of a stare there. So Timothy has asked, can giraffes feed on all types of trees? Timothy, as long as they're not toxic. If you look at something like your tambuti, it has a natural defense, which is an incredibly nasty toxin. Very few species feed on it. Generally only those that have a blocked stomach, although your black rhino is known to be fond of it. I've seen ellies eat it a little bit. But these guys prefer your acacia family of trees, so your thorn trees. Remember, all your species of trees have the ability to defend themselves using tannins and just making their leaves very unpalatable. So yes, they can feed on pretty much anything, but you'll find that they prefer the thorn tree family. Andrea, I have no idea. So I've just been asked, is it common for giraffes to get arthritis? Now, if I think of arthritis, I think of old people with issues with their hands and not so much with animals. I've never had that thought before, and I'm not even sure they can get it, to be very honest. It's just interesting watching this giraffe bull slowly feed around this bush. I've got a nice little hornbill calling in the background, some sociable weavers. There's a crown plover and a blacksmith crown lapwing. It's Some blacksmith lapwings calling in the background as well. So quite a nice dawn chorus to accompany our friend here. Slowly waiting for that sun to come up over the mountains. We'll start to get a little more of that golden light this side. So Lisa has asked, do giraffes' patterns help with thermoregulation, similar to a zebra's? Now, I've never had that question before, I must admit. It seems like a morning for a few I haven't had. Very cool, always. If I think about it, Lisa, I can't see why not potentially. I cannot say I've read anything that leads me to believe it, but it might just be something I've missed. In general, the patterns are more an identifying feature between individuals. They're unique, but I can't see why not. And if you look at giraffes in general, this is a rather dark individual. You do get much paler individuals. I have heard a theory on the reserve that in general the giraffes here are much paler because of the sun. Whether or not that's ever been studied, I'm not certain. But I wouldn't say it's an impossible theory. It is one I would need to double check before I could give you a yes or a no answer. Not quite sure what happened there. Decided to do a little bit of a disco maneuver. So we're going to carry on and leave this old boy to his breakfast and see what else we can find. For now, we're going to send you across to Lauren at Djuma. Enjoy.
Now this is something you don't see every day, a hoisted warthog. Now Finoti and I have been working a drag mark, and there is clearly a leopard responsible for this, a male leopard. We think it could be Mulwati, but I've not seen any sign of a leopard yet, just a poor old warthog up in this marula. So I think the best plan of action for us is just to sit tight, quietly. If it is Mulwati, we know that he's skittish. At least can be quite skittish. But it looks like there's a lot of meat left. Can we do a little meat check? It's definitely been feasted upon. But I think maybe if we just sit tight, the male is going to come back. I mean, it's not the most pleasant thing looking at this warthog, but it's very impressive. My gut feeling tells me it's Mulwati. It'd be so lovely to see Mulwati up a tree. I don't believe we've had a sighting with Mulwati up a tree. James had him eating a warthog, quite some time ago now. Trishala had him eating a scrub here, but I don't think we've had him up a tree. So I'm just going to sit here, be very, very patient, and you guys are going to go all the way down to Swallow.
So folks, you're back with us, and we're trying to figure out what our giraffe friend has found so curious that he is staring intently. These animals are most definitely an indicator species in the fact that if you see a journey or a tower of giraffe all staring in one direction, it is always worth going and investigating why. It has led me to lions, wild dogs, cheetah before, but in this case it could just be something coming to drink at the dam. We are still very close to it. But he definitely seems curious about something. It's always fun to wonder what goes through their minds. I do think sometimes we try and put in human emotion almost to them. But the natural curiosity of a giraffe, I think, is something very much real and something, if you've ever been in the bush, you can experience. My favorite is always on a bushwalk. If you see a journey of giraffe and they see you, just sit down and give them a few moments, and they cannot help it. They want to know what is going on, and they will wander closer to you. Looks like this gentleman's coming to have a look at us as well. Coming a little bit closer. So Jensen's asked the question that is heavily discussed in our industry, and that is, do giraffe spots get darker as they get older? Now, I've heard arguments on both sides. There's quotes and all sorts behind it. But the long story short is, and what I've noticed through personal experience, is they are either prone to be darker or to be lighter. Obviously, that's just a genetic thing. I do think as they get older, their coats lose a little bit of that luster. So one could interpret it as getting a little bit darker as they get older. But I do think it's just, if you think about your grandparents or something, as they get older, your skin starts to change. I don't think it's any different for these guys, especially as theirs is fur. So their hair will start to change. We're going to just try and readjust a little bit here, folks. But I do think, to a degree, if an animal was a darker animal, similar to this chap, he might get a little bit darker. But then you've also got the other theory that when in the Kalahari, these animals were paler because of the sun. So it is a difficult one to give a absolute answer. And I do think, to a degree, genetics play a part, as well as where they are could potentially also have an effect. Something you could almost consider a micro-adaptation to the habitat that they're in. So we're just going to start up here, folks. Take a little bumble back and see what's going on. So we're going to carry on. We're going to send you across to Mike at Pridelands. Enjoy.
So we're continuing down the drainage line. We're crisscrossing it every now and again. And as we crossed to this one place here, I saw this fallen knobthorn. And it got me to thinking about questions people often ask. If we can survive as guides in nature, in the bush. And I mean, to a certain extent, sure, we can find water and we can, find food, and we know kind of what things to eat and whatever. I don't know if we could survive forever, but definitely for a short time, for sure. And one of the main things to do in the bush is to find water. You really need to find water. And this is a good way to find where water might have collected in a dam or some other type of reservoir. So as you can see, there's a fallen tree here, and on the right side here, there's a bit of a hollow dug out, and there's no real vegetation here. But on the left side of it, or on the other side of it, you can see there's a ton of grass and sticks and twigs. Detritus has washed up against this fallen log, and that tells you that the direction of water movement is, that way, going down the drainage line, which is pretty cool, pretty important to know, because now if you were lost in the bush and you couldn't find water and you're really struggling, the best thing to do would be to follow this drainage line, because that's going to be going downhill, and the lower you go, the more chances you're going to have to find some water pooling somewhere that you can then dig in the sand, just like that elephant did, to get some of that cleaner material. I mean, we do it often in this very drainage line. Sometimes when we're on bushwalk and we find a low patch where we can see elephants have been digging before, we get the students to dig, and then the water that is there is not crystal clear, but it's perfectly drinkable. I mean, this is a natural area. There's very little human influence here, so we can dig down and drink the water, and it's relatively okay. If you drink too much of it in one go, you might get a bit of a stomach bug, a little bit of an upset stomach, but a little sip here and there just to keep you going, 100% fine. So it's a really important tool when out in the bush. And I don't know if you notice this small bush just behind me here. I believe this might be what they call potato bush. In fact, I'm completely lying to you. It's a white berry bush, which is another very interesting plant because a white berry bush has delicious little fruits in the early part of summer. It's one of the first trees or bushes to fruit. And the name is not very inventive because it literally just has little white berries, but they are jam-packed full of sugar. So drainage lines are really a phenomenal place to go and spend time looking for food, shelter, water. It's a great survival tip. Head to the drainage lines. Now, I was just wondering why this one has all this frass underneath it. I don't know if you know what frass is. It's basically caterpillar droppings. I'll show you a little bit of what frass looks like up close. So you see these look like berries. They look like little blackberries. That is caterpillar frass. Very, very high nutritious soil fertilizer. But anyway, as we keep moving down this drainage line, keep looking what else we can find, we'll send you over to Lauren, who's found a carcass.
Sadly, the situation's not changed here. We've seen Intima, and Tima's around. She can obviously smell the delicious warthog. We've not seen any signs of a leopard. He's here. He's definitely here. And I think it's more than likely Mulwati due to the size of the tracks and the location where we are. We are just slightly north of the southern firebreak next to Weaver's Nest. And the only other male that it could be right now would possibly be Shasha. And his track marks are obviously much smaller than the likes of Mulwati's. So I'm just going to speculate that it's Mulwati. And I really do think he's going to come back at some point. I think the best bet really is just to stay still. Patience pants are fully on. And that's where the hyenas are. And Tima's not at the den because she's here. I think this is the first time I've seen a warthog hoisted, though. And if you just take a simple look at the environment where we are right now, it's still so thick. The grass is definitely subsiding. The vegetation's changing, I can see that. But if you just look around, it's so thick. There's a leopard here. We just can't see him. And I don't know whether to go round. I know he's just there. The other vehicle saw him. I also don't want to scare him. I don't know whether the best bet is just to sit tight, but you can see it's still so dense, subsiding, but very marginally so. This poor warthog. I think sit tight is the best option for now. I have had sightings with Mulwati. We all have, I think. They're just very brief. He's really not a male that enjoys being around vehicles. So I think we'll maybe keep this lock to a 2-vehicle sighting instead of 3, just to not scare him off. But if he's put all that hard work into this kill and dragged it, we followed that drag mark quite far, then he's not going to let it go. Martin, absolutely. Absolutely. If another leopard came by and could smell this, they've got prime access to this warthog. Absolutely. They may be a bit nervous, especially if it's a youngster like Shasha and Langa. They may know that there's a kill there. And of course, they can't resist that delicious aroma in their nostrils. But they may also be nervous because the owner of this kill could be around. And leopards like Shasha and Langa, who are really, really not too far away from Gowrie Main, but on Little Gowrie, they're young, they're small. But yes, absolutely, Tingana used to come and steal Tlalamba's kills all the time. Really, all the time. Just jump up the tree and take it. So yes, even a lion, Darkmane's apparently around as well somewhere. You can hear him. He called all night. And he could easily come up the tree as well if he's not too stiff, that's for sure. So we're just going to sit tight here for now, and you guys are going to go across to Nikki at Ngala.
I really hope something comes to that tree. where Lauren is waiting at the moment. But something else in the tree here is, look at this owl. So something very distinctive about it is if you look around the face, do you notice those pink eyelids and that black that goes from above the eye all the way to under the chin? You'll notice the grayish wash with the white speckles on the back. So this is a Verreaux's eagle owl, or the other name for it, a giant eagle owl. The name eagle owl is it's quite an interesting name because the size of this owl is probably the size of an eagle, hence the name eagle owl. And they can take pretty much anything their size and smaller. And it has been recorded where they would take something as big as as something like a vervet monkey, or maybe even other birds, reptiles. So there's a pair that were close together here, and this one flew off and landed on this branch. Now I can see those pink eyelids pretty well. You can see there's a breeze blowing. Look at how the feathers are blown up by the wind. You can see it's looking around. Now, mainly when you drive in a riverbed, you often find them along the big trees. Chris, as you mentioned earlier, eagle owl because of the fact that they are the size of an eagle, hence the name eagle owl. And just to give you an idea, so as that owl sitting there, it's probably close to, just judging by at least 35 to 40 centimeters, if not bigger. It's a massive owl. And hence the older name as well, the giant eagle owl, because it's probably one of the biggest owls we get in the area, them and the spotted eagle owl. You can see it's just looking around. Often they mainly come out in the evening, but if you drive along the riverbeds, you'll sometimes see them perched on these branches overhanging the river. I'm just trying to see if I can see the other one, but unfortunately no luck yet. I think the other one just moved off to a tree that we can't really see it at the moment with a lot of cover. And whenever they call, they have this very distinctive in the riverbed. Emma, there's some, but there's also a few that, like the pearl-spotted owlet, that sometimes moves in the day, and they fly around there because they hunt little birds. But most of the owls, I would probably say, are going to be nocturnal, so mainly coming out in the evening. And even something like a Pell's fishing owl has been recorded to hunt in the daytime. So I would say most owls probably going to be at night, but there are some that would use the opportunity. And I think they're also like the lions we mentioned, like leopards, they're very opportunistic. So even in the daytime, if there was something really close nearby, they would use that opportunity if they can. I think sometimes at night they just see a bit better, so they have that slight advantage, or quite a reasonable advantage. And of course with owls, whenever they fly, you can't hear them flying because of all the feathers. It dampens their noise, and so they're very quiet flyers. just wanted to show you where they are on the riverbed. And if I can ask my porch to move out so you can actually look down the riverbed and see where we've come from.
Graham, I'm just going to see, there's a very good place. I want to see if we can get good signal from there. That's what I'd like to know.
Welcome to dawn in the African bush.
How cool is this? Can you believe it? Those cubs are now only 10 feet from us. Unbelievable.
Elephants chasing wild dogs chasing elephants. Pandemonium!
Watching how Wild Earth has grown since 2007 has been truly remarkable. On the 27th of April this year, Wild Earth will be turning 14, and we would love to hear from you. Please send us your own special birthday message, which we can share with the rest of the Wild Earth family. Maybe you can tell us why you started watching Wild Earth, what Wild Earth means to you, or you could just send us a very happy birthday. Don't forget, when you want to film yourself, to hold your phone sideways to get the best angle. When you are ready, you can email your videos through to birthday@wildearth.tv.
Staying one step ahead is the key to survival out in the African wild. And now you can stay in front of the pack with a Wild Earth weekly newsletter. Sign up to be a Wild Earth explorer and you will get exclusive behind-the-scenes stories about your favorite guides and camera operators. Information about our upcoming plans and projects will be delivered to your inbox every week before anyone else. And you can hone your guiding skills by taking part in our Identify Me nature quizzes. Wild Earth Explorers, it's in your nature.
I'm Nikki here at Ambion Ngala in South Africa. I love getting questions from viewers about all the small things within the environment and how it all is integrated with one another. If you want to ask me any questions, please simply register with the Wild Earth website, head across to the Live Safari page and then post your questions there. I'm looking forward to chatting to you on my next Wild Earth drive.
What are you looking at, man? That's its gangster face. It has the manners of a common variety vagabond. Look at it, chewing with its mouth open like that.
To a beautiful natural archway and a very idyllic small mud wallow waterhole. We were actually here about a week ago. The water levels dropped significantly, but what a spectacular little spot. It's very, very sheltered, and that's why it's staying with water for quite some time. Still in the drainage line, a couple hundred meters from where we were. And there's another interesting sign over here, one that we should be very aware of. Now, mud is often sought after by many animals, especially buffaloes, because as they get older, they lose their fur and they need the mud to protect them from biting insects and also from the sun. And up here, what we've got is the sign of a buffalo's horn scraping here. Do you see that? So often buffaloes get an itch between their horns, especially the males with that big boss. And so just where the horn attaches to the skull, they can't scratch just in there. So what they often do is they'll come up to a tree like this and rub all over it in order to try and get to those itches they can't reach with their hind feet. And so the boss is very strong and heavy and scrapes off the bark of these small trees around these waterholes. And then you can even see where they've been squeezing through behind me here. There's mud caked onto the side of this tambourti here. It must be so pleasant with this rough bark to actually scrape through there. Oh, I'm in the way a little bit. All right, but another really awesome reason that we decided to stop here was because we've seen this waterhole before and it's nice to watch the progression of how it's changing. But we just talked about finding water in nature. So this water hole here is very smelly, full of animal dung, full of saliva, urine. It's not good. We can't drink that. That's going to be toxic to us and we'll get very sick. But over to your right over here, there is a nice sandy filtration system. And you can see just over here, well, I actually came here earlier to test it and it worked. There's where elephants have been digging in the sand over here, and you can see it's very wet. So what I want to try and do is to show you how quickly you can find water in nature. Okay, so if I take my hands here, look at this. Look how quickly that is filling up with water. Can you see that? Isn't that amazing? Now, it looks very silty and muddy right now, but if we dig a little deeper, make it a bit deeper, and we leave it to settle, you'll notice all the silt settles at the bottom, and you've got nice, clean, fresh water at the top. So what I'm thinking of doing is maybe spending the next half an hour here, dig a nice big open hole, and see if we can get that to settle, and then I'll drink a little bit of it to show you that it's perfectly drinkable. This would be a kind of place where you could almost make a base if you were lost in the bush somewhere, because you've got chances to ambush animals coming down to the water if you needed food. There'll be almost certainly plenty of edible plants, roots. I mean, just over there behind me is a buffalo thorn tree, and that's got edible leaves, so you could eat that. You can find water. You can generally find a lot of shelter and shade in this place. You just need to be very aware of dangerous animals like buffaloes and elephants. But if you put your little shelter somewhere away from this water, it could be quite fine. So I don't know if you'd all be keen to see that. I'd love to hear from you. Would you be keen to see me dig this sandy hole and drink some of this water, or is that a big no-no? But whilst you think about that, we'll send you over to Josh.
Folks, you find us taking a bumble in the dunes out to see what we can find. We've got some long-distance visual of game, but we have a firm favorite has been found. So, although it is one of our wild families, it's always nice to get to spend time with our little friends. So I think BK has got something to share with us there. And on a lovely, chilly Sunday morning, good to say Happy Easter with some meerkats. Shame, I think the little guys are cold this morning. I'm still wearing a jersey and a jacket, so I can imagine they're not too warm yet, so a lot of sunbathing going on there. It's quite a nice big family. Looks to be about 8 individuals that I can see in this burrow system, of which there's definitely 3 pups and what looks to be 5 adults.
Yeah, all fishes are very area.
Yeah, just sitting in the sun, defrosting a bit. So Pile's asked, which is the biggest meerkat group we have here on Tswalu? If I think of our habituated groups, I would have to say it's the Mokala family. But in terms of wild families, out in the far west, Pile, I have counted families of over 30 individuals. Now that is an incredibly large family. It's always fun watching these guys. With it getting colder, they're coming up later and later in the morning and just waiting for it to warm up quite a bit. that very distinctive pose on the back legs. So Kendall, we are probably about a 10-minute drive from the areas we find our habituated families. So this family, I have seen them 2 or 3 times. As to when they were specifically discovered, I cannot tell you. You might find some of the older guides know that this burrow system gets active every year, potentially. Remember, these guys are territorial. So this is, I think, the second time BK and I have seen them together here. But they'll have multiple burrow systems in this area. Now, without spending quite a bit of time with them and following them, we won't know where all their systems are, nor what their territory area is. So when they were discovered, I can't tell you, but I do know BK and myself found them for the first time probably a week ago. So this family would have been in the area for quite a while, but they're a little bit more relaxed because they're quite close to the main areas we spend a lot of time in, versus the families in the far west where you don't get within, I would say, 60 or 70 meters maybe. And as you can see, they're still paying a lot of attention to us. I think we're going to sit with these guys a little longer, but for now, we're going to send you across to Steve in Djuma.
Welcome to Djuma, everybody. We're following up on some female leopard tracks that came out. Up the fire break and then down the fire break. We've now not sure where they've gotten to.
So, not much has changed here. They're getting slowly a little bit more active, or it looks like it for a little while, and then the wind gusts a bit. They decide they're cold, and they either go back to sunbathing or back into the burrow system. Although they're comfortable with the vehicle, whenever BK or I move around, there's definitely a little bit of a change in behavior. Although looking at these pups, they're old enough to be following the family when going foraging. They're at that age now where they'll be begging for food and fighting with the adults. And potentially also reaching a point now where the adults will be forcing them to try and forage on their own. Definitely got 1 or 2 slowly heading off foraging. And others going, it is still too cold. It's still too early on this Easter Sunday. And as you can see, the ground cover is quite thick where they are. And grass blowing in the wind is a little bit of an indicator that it will mess with their hearing and their sense of smell a little bit. Danielle, 9 years old, has asked us, what is foraging? So Danielle, it means to go and look for food. For us, we forage in the kitchen. They forage in nature. looking at my size, I am very good at foraging in the kitchen. PK's having a good chuckle there. I am not the smallest person. So folks, I think we're going to leave this family, see what they get up to during the day. For now, we're going to send you back to Steve at Chuma.
Welcome back, everybody. Sorry about that technical issue before. We are still here waiting for our elephant bull to come and join us for coffee. Like a cup of coffee, sir. Maybe he'll come as close as he wants to. Very, very special. I can't explain to you, everybody, what that feels like, having a huge elephant bull walk right up to us, right past us. It really is quite something. Cheers. Toby, feels good. Awesome. Awesome. Now, a vehicle that was with us before has come down to the bottom. The elephant's unsure what to do. We'll quickly chug our coffee, but we're going to leave him to walk south, and we're going to keep heading on north. Okay, well, it sounds like Mike is rather thirsty. Let's go see if he's going to find himself something to drink.
So, it's been, 10 minutes, maybe less, and I've dug out this little sandy hollow. You can see I've made the sides nice and sloping so that it's not constantly crumbling into the water that I'm trying to create. And you can see here there's actually a lot of water already. Now, it's not particularly clean yet. It's still filtering through. There's still silt from when I was digging. But you can see I've got the cap of my water bottle, and I'm just going to dunk this in to show you just how deep this is. Oh, a little piece of dirt fell in there. Look at that, there's a cup full of water. Now this water, as you can see, is not particularly clean just yet, but it's going to get cleaner as we slowly remove this very dirty, muddy water from this hole. And you can see, if you look on the edges here, you can see the water is clear on the edges. That's the water that's filtering in through the sand itself. So as we remove this silty, muddy water, it takes time, but remember, when you're in a survival situation, or even in fact just when you're living to the beat of nature's drum, let's put it that way, there is no rush. There's no reason to be hasty. You just take your time. You found water, and it's just about now making it right. So I'm just going to keep, as you see, taking out the dirty water. Just throw it out and let the clean water filter in. And even if it's a little discolorous, that's not a huge problem, because most of that is just very fine silt, and also minerals and other goodies that will, if anything, keep you healthy. So the story continues. We keep at it. There's a root or something just sticking in here. I'm just going to keep removing that and letting the clean, beautiful, and you have to be gentle about it, because the more aggressively you try and get the silt out, the more of it you disturb. It's about letting the silt settle. Nina, sand is one of the best filtration systems you can get. Most people who have swimming pools, I don't know if you have one, Nina, at home, but the swimming pool uses a sand filtration system usually to keep that water crystal clear. So it's a very wonderful way of filtering the systems. So you can see I'm just removing all of this silty stuff, and eventually, I mean, it sometimes can take, an hour of just slowly removing the silt and letting the water slowly fill in. Eventually you'll get beautiful clean water. Now, in many places, you would maybe mix in a little bit of coal. If you had coal, like let's say you found a leadwood or some other tree that had burnt in a bushfire, if you take a lump of that coal and you put it in there, it's also really good at removing quite a lot of the toxins that might be in the water. Coal is a natural binding agent for toxins. Often when you have those straw filters, those life straws and things, they've got coal in them, which helps to remove any bacteria and toxins. I'm not too worried though. I've been living in Africa for 10 years, maybe a bit longer, in the bush. So my body is quite used to the little bacteria and microorganisms that live in the soil. So I've got no major worries. But whilst you see this is going to take a while, I'm going to send you over to Josh, and hopefully when you come back, this water will be crystal clear.
So folks, we have hit the jackpot. What we have here is a pair of Lana Falcons, and it looks like they've got themselves a little swift. Now, birds will make up 80% of their prey, and they have quite an interesting hunting technique. They'll either use cover to mask their approach or speed. They're incredibly quick and very versatile flyers. They do particularly like hanging around waterholes and waiting for the different flocks to come in. So they've definitely been successful this morning. And it is swift breakfast. Very, very pretty birds. That lovely mask. Bit of cleaning of the feathers going on there. So they won't only just eat birds. Eat small mammals, bats. They have been recorded eating insects and rodents. But definitely birds is the big part of the menu. Although to catch a swift, which is what we think they're feeding on there, we had a little bit of a closer look with the binos, is not easy. It's also a very agile flyer. Be interested to see if the other individual gets to feed. They do often, as a breeding pair, cooperatively hunt. But whether or not if they're going to share or not, I'm not sure. It's very cool to have such a relaxed pair, maybe 40 meters from the vehicle, nice and clear, and be able to get a look at what's going on here. Catherine, what is the biggest animal that they can catch? I'd say the biggest I've personally seen is a sand grouse. They're not a very big bird, they're not a very heavy bird, but obviously the amount of force they can strike with because of the speeds they're capable of achieving, I'd say you'll probably find they could potentially hunt as big as Maybe a dussie, but I think that's even boxing above their weight. I'd say anything up to about a kilo. As a rough guesstimate, they'd be able to hunt. But remember, they also need to be able to carry that prey away, so that'll affect it as well. I'd say even a kilo might be too big, to be honest. They're not a very large bird of prey. Quite an interesting question. Do wonder. Just actually want to double check here because there's not a lot in terms of specific species that they feed on. And we certainly don't know all the answers, so I definitely use my books and that every now and then. But yeah, you're looking at a bird that weighs a few hundred grams. So anything in their body weight range and maybe a little bit bigger would be possible, I would say. Very beautiful bird of prey and very distinctive. So wildflower, they most definitely do often hunt around waterholes. In the west at Kalkpan, one of our waterholes, there's a breeding pair there that is there almost daily, waiting for the sandgrouse flocks, the namakwa doves and that. So they've done really well hunting in that area. We're not near a waterhole currently, but they do like using the waterholes for sure. Love how clear-coated they are. Very beautiful birds. Folks, I'm in the same boat as you. I too am wondering, are they going to share? And I'm not sure. I mean, as cooperative hunters, you would think so. As birds of prey, not so much. Generally, what you will see is if there is any sharing going on, it's from an adult feeding a chick. But between a breeding pair, I'm not sure. I mean, there are certain species in nature where you will find that. There's others where it is a huge fight. But in this particular scenario, it doesn't currently look like it at all. It doesn't look like there's much feeding going on at the moment either. I think this is one of those situations in nature where you land up with more questions than you have answers for. So Dina, they are capable of catching birds both in the air and on the ground, but more often than not, you're going to find they are taking them on the wing. So they might come in at speed from behind a bush or something towards a waterhole. As that flock takes off, they are going to try and catch one. But obviously, that's not going to always be the case. There might be times where they're catching them just as they take off and kind of bouncing them into the ground a little bit. You're going to have a lot of momentum behind them when they're diving. Doesn't look like there's all that much feeding going on that little, what we think is a little swift. It's definitely still got its kill there. But certainly no feeding going on.
On the 27th of April, Wild Earth will be turning 14 years old, and we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for all of you. And to celebrate, we will be finishing the beautiful book that we started last year that looks at the history so far. But we do need you to be part of it. Please submit your most memorable sighting, or what Wild Earth means to you, or even just your name and a comment to be included inside the book. Head over to the website to add your name and reserve your copy. And a big thank you to all of you who have contributed to the book so far.
With a slew of potential dangers lurking, it's essential to be aware of your surroundings whilst walking in the wilderness.
20 yards away from one of the most endangered species. This is a big bull.
What a moment, what a close encounter with an early bull. He's just over here now. He's moved completely away.
Being on a bushwalk and seeing a leopard, I mean, it's ridiculous to be this close to a leopard on foot and for him not to run is absolutely insane. How crazy was that?
Through the gap there is just the back of the head of a male lion. He is absolutely unaware that we are here right now. I tell you, seeing lions on foot, it definitely brings out the caveman in you, this little scared human being.
My name is Ross, and I'm a field guide at and beyond Pinder Private Game Reserve. I love getting questions from guests on Wild Earth because I love sharing and learning information about nature with new people, and it also makes me feel like you're all joining me in real life. If you want to ask a question on Wild Earth, then you need to register on our website. Once registered, go to our live safari page and submit your question below our live feed.
So folks, we're still sitting here, we're still wondering. We have lost the male, he's moved off. So the female is still there. And we can't decide if he's maybe decided that he's not getting any breakfast, so he's going to have to go hunt for himself, or what's going on here. But she's still got her kill. She's kind of having a look around and seeing what's going on. Oh, Beard, I'm glad we could show you a new bird species. It's always exciting when you can add a new one to the list. Doesn't seem like too much is happening here. There's no feeding going on. And we are left with a cliffhanger of a question. Will they share or won't they share? Yeah, this is one of those moments in nature where you just don't have the answer. So I think the name I heard was Tyler. Just want to make certain that BK is confirming for me. So Tyler, yes, they are native to Tswalu. They are a resident species here. We have residents in SA as well as some migrant populations as well. But they are most definitely found all over Southern Africa. There can be no doubt there. A very pretty bird with a decent population. Definitely think we've been left with the cliffhanger question here. Because now I'm sitting wondering, like, one individual's left and the other one's left, and now what? So, I think, folks, we're just not going to get an answer here. So we're going to move on. We're going to send you back to Mike, who's decided instead of being a guide, he's going to be a water digger. Enjoy.
So as you see here, half an hour later, the water is noticeably clearer than it was before. Now, the surrounding soil in the area is very clay-like, and so there's a certain clay content in this nice sandy river sand. And so as the water filters in, it sort of brings in some of these silty clay particles. And I just dunked the cap of my water bottle in, which also raised the water level a bit, which caused a bit of sand to fall in. But essentially, we've got drinkable water here. So, as you see, I've got my water bottle cap here, and I'll make sure so that you can see it's not a trick, it's completely empty. And I just take this, and you don't want to disturb the water, so you just take a little bit of that. You can see in there, I've got half a cap full, and that's quite a significant amount of water. And I'll taste it now, so that you all can see that I'm not lying. This is real good stuff. Oh, that is actually so good. So our water in the camp is borehole water that we get from our eco-training camp. And it tastes exactly the same as this. It's got a little bit of an earthy taste, a little bit metallic from the iron in the soil in the surrounding area, but that is a great way to quench the thirst on a nice hot day. And you could make this so much better. You could pack rocks along the edge of this hole to stop the sand from filling in. What you would normally do is make this a lot wider than it is now, so it gathers more and more and more water. And the longer you leave it, the more this sediment will settle at the bottom, because every time I empty it out, it draws more water in, which then brings in a certain amount of the clay content. But every time I let it settle for half an hour, it gets almost crystal clear. So that is a spectacular way to get water in the bush. That is actually delicious. Have you ever drunk water just straight from the ground? It's so cool. I get excited every time I do this, because it just makes me think, this is ancestors. This is the ancestors. This is what human beings were doing before you had access to, clean water from, purification plants and all sorts of stuff. You literally just collected water straight from the ground like this. There's wonderful stories of survival, and this is what we're doing right now. I've just shown you how easy it is to extract water. Just find any drainage line, find a bit of a pond of water. Even in the deepest part of winter, if you go to a shady bend in a riverbed and you dig down, you are likely to find water just like this. Maybe a bit deeper, but if you're persistent enough, you'll find it. So, cheers, everyone. From now, we're going to send you over to Nikki at Ngala.
Have a look at this beautiful scene at this nice open area. So there's quite a few animals here. There's impala, the wildebeest, the zebra we can see. And look here in the back. There's actually a very special bird that's moving behind or between where the zebras are now and the wildebeest in the back. So I'd like to know from our viewers if they know what bird this is. So I think, Paul, from where you are now, slightly right, and then there in the back. You might see the head popping out amongst just behind the tree there. So I would love to know from our viewers, once you can see a bit more features if we spend some time there, what bird this is a bit of a quiz. There it goes. Often seen on the ground, and they can catch anything from rodents to snakes to lizards to just basically anything that they can fit in that bill of theirs. And of course these beautiful blue wildebeests, what I do enjoy about them is these stripes that run from the shoulder all the way down to the belly. And then you can see that running forward onto the neck. And look at this one just rubbing its head against this one's back side. Probably a little itch around the face. And how's that for the zebra moving through? Of course, my favorite animals, I don't mind spending the whole day with them. What I do enjoy about zebras, look at these two here, their stripe patterns. Like if you look at the one in front, one crossing down, the one in the back, all of them are different. Like we have different fingerprints, so they have different stripes. And every single zebra has a different stripe pattern. Have you noticed when they're feeding like this, it looks like their skin is twitching. Julia, I agree with you. There are southern ground hornbills. Well done. There's actually one that's moved out a bit more behind this one zebra. So I don't know if we're going to get another glimpse. But there's one there that I can see that's moving past that dead tree. But just wanted to get back to the zebra. So with that skin twitching, what it is just trying to get rid of the flies. So it's not that they're really cold. It's just with all the flies bugging them, they'll swat their tail. Sometimes they'll even feed with their heads close to the other one's tail just to get rid of the flies. And just behind those zebras now, you might see the southern ground hornbill moving. It just disappeared. I'm trying to see if I can find it again. I think it might have disappeared behind one of the bushes. Oh, there we go. Apparently, there's an ostrich, I think, somewhere in this area as well, or giraffe. Jerome, if you mind saying that question again, or just wanted to hear it again. So I was so distracted. There's actually a giraffe. I thought it was. I was looking at Dyke earlier on, and he pointed out in the distance, and I thought, ostrich. Meantime, it was a giraffe. Drum, not that I've ever heard of. I do know, I have heard about them actually killing a young impala lamb before. And one of the rangers that used to work here for quite a few years actually witnessed a whole group of southern ground hornbills actually killing an baby and pecking away at it and trying to tear bits and pieces of meat off of it. So it has been recorded here, and I mean, some of the rangers have seen that before. I've never seen it. I've seen them catching snakes before. I've seen them catching what looked like a rodent, and of course a lot of insects. You can see the giraffes just staring down at those hornbills. You can just see that bush in front there. The wind's blowing quite strong, and sometimes when that happens, you find more of the plains game will tend to gather in these open areas, because the lions will use it to their advantage. As soon as they hunt and the wind is strong enough, it does affect the hearing of the animals as well, of course, as it gives them cover to move without making too much noise, or the noise being dampened by the movement of the trees and the grass. And that's why they tend to be in more open areas, so they can at least spot if there's any danger around. See, another giraffe just joined up. While we were on the quizzes, can any one of our guests or viewers tell us, see, the ground hornbill is also going to make its way into the picture, what a group of giraffes would be called when they're standing still and not moving? So when they're moving, the hint is it's called a journey, but what happens if they stand still? What do you refer to then, if you refer to them? Freak, it is such a beautiful panorama scene, and we have actually the Drakensberg Mountains. I'm going to ask Paul just to zoom out a bit, just to show you the very far background. I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but you can see there's a bit of mist, but that's the Drakensberg Mountains in the back there. And on a clear day, you can actually see the mountains, and it's so beautiful being up in an area like this and watching the sunset over those mountains, and having the herds of animals like the zebra and the wildebeest and impala. Sometimes even a herd of elephants or giraffes coming through. Kirsten, you are absolutely correct. It is called a tower of giraffes. And it's very interesting because you'll see these two that we're looking at right now, how they're staring in our direction. There was some movement behind us from impala. Could have been at that, could be at us, just having a look, very curious to see what's on this side, because we're quite far away from them. They're probably well over 100 meters away from us. You'll see the one, and they do look like quite young giraffe. I mean, if you look at them, they are like, in comparison to the southern ground hornbill, they're not really that tall. I don't know if they might be males or females. Sometimes the young males also have tufts of hair on top of their heads until they get to a certain age where they start necking each other, and that's when they start losing that hair on top of their head. But it's hard to see from this distance. Might even be two females. See how the impala rams have actually joined up with all these animals, because now we have the impala, the zebra, the wildebeest, the giraffe, and then those impala on that side. And it's all because of safety in numbers. The more eyes, the more ears, the safer they feel. And with giraffes, they have quite a nice vantage point to be able to scan and look out for any possible predators that are lying in the tall grass that might be very difficult to spot if you were lower down. Wildflower, it is absolutely such a beautiful scene. It's very picturesque. I also think this time of the year is so nice because you have this lush green grass in some sections where the tips of the grass start to turn this whitish, yellowish color, and then you have the contrast with the green guarri trees, and then in the distance some of the trees that are actually slowly starting to fade. And quite beautiful. And then, of course, you can see there's a stump in the picture as well, so quite a few dead trees in the area. It just adds to the scene. Some of the wildebeests, just right of where these giraffes are, have actually went and lied down in the grass. And all you can see is basically the top of the heads and the horns sticking out of the grass. You'll see from where this giraffe is. Oh, there's two southern grown hornbills that are walking past it right now. But more right of it, around a little bit more right than that, you'll start seeing the wildebeest here in the tall grass. So 50 not to my knowledge. With female giraffes, they don't really fight over territory or fight over mating rights, but the males do. So often you find when the males move into an area and the females in estrus, then you find that two males would actually fight one another for that mating right. And the actual fight is quite impressive because from a distance it almost sounds like distant gunshots going off like a goop, goop. Because when they hit each other, it's just such a big force, and they're actually trying to hit each other off their feet. Look at all the wildebeest lying down. You can just see the horns and the heads above the grass. That one's now decided to go and lie down. That was absolutely incredible. For now, what I think we'll do is let's carry on with our drive and see what other animals we can find up ahead.
Nestled on the banks of one of the largest lakes in the Sabi Sands lies an award-winning game lodge called Chitwa Chitwa. Many of you will have been on safari here virtually with Wild Earth, but now we are offering you the chance to see it for yourself in person. Sign up to be a Wild Earth explorer before the end of April, and you and a friend could win 3 nights to this luxury lodge. In addition to the unforgettable safaris, you can unwind on the deck, relax in the pool, and even savor the various bush dining experiences. Chitwa's holistic approach to hospitality, with specific emphasis on conservation, will leave you with the very best memories of the African wild. Wild Earth Explorers, it's in your nature. The Mara Triangle is a jewel in the Kenyan conservation crown, and thanks to the dedication of the Mara Conservancy, it thrives as one of Earth's greatest national treasures.
We have been experiencing a reduction in the whale snails that we collect on a monthly basis, and this is basically attributed to our intense patrols.
Over the years, this courageous team of anti-poachers has reduced poaching to almost zero.
Mimi naitwa Stephen Olereso. Nimefanya kazi miaka 16 sasa, kuanzia mwaka 2002. Hao wanadamu ni wenye utua sana inaogofya ni wale wenye wanaenda kama ndovu, wanatumia kama bunduki. Sasa hiyo ndio huwa inakuanga hatari sana kwa sisi.
As a result of the global pandemic and the massive reduction in tourist revenue, the Mara Triangle is facing a financial crisis. They need your help if they are to continue their ability to protect this magical land.
I love being a cam-up for Wild Earth. The animals coming right up close to you, especially like lions. Sometimes you get nervous, but you have to go with the flow. My favorite animal to film is the elephant because of how big it is. But when it's really up close to you, it's one animal that you would say I really respect you.
So, folks, we have not been able to answer our question. We've sat here, and the male has not come back. The female hasn't continued feeding. We're wondering maybe if she's irritated by us, but I think she would have flown away if she had. And not a lot has changed. We've got a nice long-distance visual of some Gemsbok, but apart from that, this Lana is not interested in us. So we did wonder maybe if the male came back, if something would change. We gave it a few minutes. But I think we are left with this question. It's an incredibly beautiful bird. But I do think we're going to leave this bird in peace, and we are going to see if we can't get a look at those Gemsbok before we bumble on and see what else we can find this morning. So, if we go through that gap there, BK, get a bit of a long distance visual for one of our desert specialists. They're quite a shy antelope here on Tsalu, actually. We have a very healthy population, but they are not so fond of the vehicles, and we seldom get close to them. So we're about 100, 150 meters away from this small herd. And at this distance, they're comfortable and just carrying on with their natural behavior. It's a very beautiful antelope. It's a very striking antelope. Always nice just to be able to sit and watch. Very peaceful at the moment. It's warming up quite nicely. So at least we're no longer frozen this morning. So Nola has asked, are they the only antelope that has straight horns? Nola, we're just going to quickly go back to our peregrine here. Not our peregrine, our Lana, who has started feeding again. Do wonder what the change was, but suddenly we've got some activity again. Just trying to think now, Nola, what else has straight horns? So those horns, your oryx's horns, are always sort of referred to as the scimitar kind of shape. Just running through all the antelope species in my mind, thinking, who else has straight horns? But I do think it is only the oryx that has that particular horn type that is so straight. I do wonder. No, I can't think of any others, Nola. It is definitely just the oryx off the top of my head. Nice little bit of feeding behavior here from our falcon. Can only hypothesize, but do you think we agree the male has gone hunting again? So Marcus has asked, what is my favorite bird of prey? I have to say it would have to be our fish eagle. There's something about its haunting cry, that melody, that has always excited me and made me happy. And there's such a beautiful bird. Without a doubt, for me, it would be your fish eagle. It's obviously living in the desert. I don't see a lot of. So folks, I think we've answered some of our questions here, but not all. And that's just how nature goes sometimes. So we're going to start up and roll out. We're going to send you across to Mike at Pridelands. Enjoy.
So we've walked another few hundred meters from where we were, and we've come across this giraffe feeding in this beautiful grassy plain on some of the tamboites along the drainage line there. This giraffe is interesting. It's a very old male giraffe. You can see by the heavy brows, and also this one's got a particularly large hump on its forehead. Now that is not an extra horn growing or an ossicone. It's just simply a collection of calcium or a deposit of calcium there to help protect its brain when they fight. I'm sure you were watching or at least talking about giraffes fighting earlier and how much power is involved in it. And so you can see this old giraffe who's probably a little bit past his prime. He's got a lot of protection on his skull because of that fighting that they have to do all the time. The giraffe's looking around, it's not looking at us, which is a good sign. It means we're not bothering it unnecessarily. We're standing probably about 50 meters away, maybe a bit less. And at first it was watching us quite a lot. But now it seems to have gotten used to our presence. It's starting to feed. In fact, it's even walking towards us, maybe to feed on some of this, what looks like a bush willow or something that's next to it. I'm going to step forward slightly. Amazing that it's really paying us very little attention. It knows we're here. I mean, they've got incredibly good eyesight. And although the wind is not blowing in its direction, well, now you can really see that hump beautifully. It's eating directly off the tamboiti. Oftentimes animals eat tamboiti, we think, if they're suffering with some sort of internal parasites, because tamboiti is very toxic and it might help to cleanse their insides. But that's purely speculation on my part and on the people that I've spoken to. This is a very old male giraffe. Look at its neck. You can see that neck is not as thick and as muscled as it used to be. And if you look between its legs, its front legs, you can see there's a lot of loose skin there. That is also a typical sign of an animal that's starting to lose condition. Still a big, strong animal, still unlikely to suffer predation from lions. But as it gets older, the chances increase. Oh, Travis, that is a question I've never had before. Can giraffes balance without their tails? I think they probably can. In fact, I definitely know they can. I've seen giraffes without tails before, or at least with very little of their tail left. It probably doesn't feel super great, but I mean, most of a giraffe's weight is on its front legs, its neck, a little bit on the hind legs, but not too much. And the tail is actually almost vestigial. It just uses it to chase away flies. It doesn't really use it for helping balance at all. They generally don't climb trees, although now that I've said that, we're probably going to watch this giraffe clambering up some sort of a small marula nearby. But no, I don't think they have any problems balancing without a tail. Not like monkeys or baboons or animals that climb up in trees, or even lions, leopards and cheetahs who use their tails as a rudder. When they're running and changing direction, they throw their tails left and right to balance themselves so that they don't topple over and slip when they're chasing animals at high speed. I kind of want to just walk up to this giraffe and see how it reacts, because it's paying us no attention right now. So if it's an old giraffe, like I've said it is, it's probably seen lots of human beings before. I mean, you can see that I'm standing here. There's a bit of a sickle bush just behind me, between me and that giraffe, but it's really paying us no attention at all. Even if I moved over this side here, so now I'm out in the open, it still does nothing. It's amazing, actually, to be honest. So now it watches. You see, as Johan was moving forward, it's sticking its tongue out. Still looking over our shoulder. I wonder if there's not something else in the area. But anyway, while we see how close we can... Well, actually, we're not going to go any closer, to be honest. We'll leave this giraffe alone. But in the meantime, we'll send you over to Steve, who's at a waterhole.
Welcome back to Djuma, everybody, to Buffelshoek Dam, where we had a malachite kingfisher a moment ago, sitting beautifully on our little branch. Now, I'm going to see if I can find him again. We're going to just be quiet as well while we sit here, because it is a beautiful morning to just sit and enjoy the sounds of Mother Nature on this Easter Sunday. KB asks a very interesting question. KB wants to know, and I wonder how many of the audience probably know the answer to this, how often do I bring coffee on my morning drives? I think it's the other way around. How many times I do morning drives with my coffee? Because coffee is definitely necessary, KB. And there's nothing nicer than sitting in a watering hole in the African wilderness with a warm beverage. I prefer coffee. I don't dislike tea, but there's something very nice about coffee here in the morning. When you rise before sunrise and you're working before sunrise, it's always nice to have a bit of coffee, just in case. It's one of those moments on Game Drive that guests get quite excited about. It's an opportunity to stretch one's legs, get out the car, maybe use the lavatory. Also just to get off the back of a moving vehicle for a few minutes and listen, get immersed in a scene like this. So to answer your question, KB, I haven't missed a morning with coffee. Marion, I don't really have I suppose I do. I do have a favourite bird call. I don't know if I'm doing it very well, but maybe. Let's see if anybody can tell what bird I'm doing. The mouth gets a bit dry. It is my attempt at it. Let me play it for you on my phone. There's a couple of examples of it as well. We don't get that bird in this area. It does occur in the Lowveld, but it likes quite riparian vegetation. Are you listening now? This is the actual call of the app, although mine sounds more like the bird when I hear it. So have a listen. Okay, send through your answers. Anybody knows what bird call that is? It's probably my second favorite bird to find. When I hear the bird call, I get very excited. My ex-girlfriend used to stay at Moditlo, which is just outside Woodspruit, and there were some of them in the drainage line that I'd hear every now and again. I used to get very excited about that. But the most part where I've seen them is in KZN, KwaZulu-Natal and St. Lucia. Had my best sightings of them there, but then also up in Pafuri, Northern Kruger. They are a very, very special bird up there. I remember once being on a trail with a group of people for 4 days, and they were on... We had 278 birds for that trail, which is incredible. That's a lot of birds. And so they deserved to see the bird that you're all trying to guess at right now. They deserved to see it. And as we were leaving camp, as we were pulling out of our trails camp on the Luvuva River, this bird came and landed right on the branch next to us. Right next to us in the open. Wild Woman says a bush shrike. Well, it is indeed a bush shrike, Wild Woman, but we're missing a word. We're missing a word. It is indeed one of the bush shrikes. So it came and landed on the bush next to us. And now I've never seen it do that before. So it came and basically honored these people and honored them and said, here we go. Add me to your list. Add me to your list. You've done so well with the birding. And we couldn't find that one for them. We could hear it. They came and sat right out in the open there. As with all bush shrikes, they're normally quite skulky. They're hidden in the thickets. You hear them more than you see them. Can you see him, Darby? There he is. You can hear him. This is the pied kingfisher. My lips give up after a while. Where's my Malachite? Does he come back out again? He disappeared. I think he's breeding in the bank here. But he's decided to disappear on us this morning. Greg, it is indeed a gorgeous bush shrike, my second favourite bird. And the bird call, my favourite call. Darby, do you like it?
Love it.
Love it. Have you seen one?
Don't think so.
I don't think so. You would know. You would know if you've seen a gorgeous bush shrike, everybody. I mean, what kind of a name is that? A gorgeous bush shrike. I think it's just gorgeous. So, yes, gorgeous bush shrike. Definitely one of the coolest birds to find. I'm actually go on missions to find them. Actually scheduled to go to KZN again, KwaZulu-Natal, to go and just get myself another gorgeous bush shrike. But I have got a few trails scheduled for Pafuri this year. So very excited to be heading up there. Heading up there. Still lots of opportunities up in the northern Kruger. Okay, well, while we enjoy another quiet moment here at this watering hole, let's send you over to Lauren.
Well, my update is rather frustrating. We left the site and we thought, okay, the leopard's not coming back. Left, did some loops, haven't picked up on any signs of his tracks coming out of that block, and we went back and looked. Nothing, I'm afraid, but what that means is he might return, and we've now got a spot where we can see the tree from a distance. We've picked a spot so we can just have a look, and we're going to be able to see if there's a leopard on it or not, instead of bashing through and potentially scaring him. And secondly, it could mean another leopard could be on it this afternoon, so it's rather frustrating seeing the kill and, well, no culprit, but there you have it. And talking of the gorgeous bush shrike that's on my list, I am desperate to see that bird. It's on my wish list. But the orange-breasted bush shrike, I think that always wins at my favourite bird call. Just love it. I also love the chin spot batis. It's so simple. It's one of the simplest, most beautiful bird calls. I thoroughly enjoy the Diederik's cuckoo as well. You know, there's so many bird calls, it's actually hard to choose one that you love the most. Henry? App on my phone called the Roberts app, and you can actually save every single bird that you see. So I don't know if it's 100% up to date, but I do try to keep it up to date. 205 species. I think that's quite impressive. 205, there you have it. And I added to my bird list in Namibia. We saw so many wonderful, wonderful species there as well. It's actually nice being in a different environment and looking at different birds. Because you think, oh, I don't know this bird. I'm so used to being in Djuma and recognizing them all. It's really hard, and it's hard to pick a favorite call. I'm really not good at picking favorites of anything. Now, we have reached Treehouse Dam because I'm on my way to check the hyenas once again. Just in case, you never know. Nothing much is happening, but we will give you a view of this gorgeous dam. There you go, Morgan. So it leaves a lot of potential for this afternoon. I will check back on that kill. Poor warthog, and hopefully the hyena dens will be active at some point. But of course the cubs are getting older now. There's such a large gap between the ages of the cubs, and some are starting to get really mobile and follow the adults, some are not. So things are changing with the Djuma clan. But as I bumble towards the den, we're going to send you down to Josh in Swalu.
So folks, I think I'm in the same boat as Steve. I don't go anywhere without coffee in the early morning, so I'm sure many of you can agree. Just that strong cuppa in the morning makes all the difference on how the day starts. And we're obviously all hoping that Lauren can find that leopard. But if the kill's in the tree, at some point that cat's gonna come back. So we're bumbling around here in the north, just having a look at what we can find. It is a beautiful Kalahari morning, and yeah, it's just nice to go out, see what there is going on out there. You just never know. Something exciting, folks. So it looks like we have a new member joining the Wild Earth family. We're going to be sending you across to Ngala to introduce. Enjoy.
Right, we just found some elephants here on the southern part of the reserve. Hello everyone, or our viewers at home. My name is Daikoza. As you saw earlier, it was Nikki taking you through this morning live, and then I'll be taking over from Nikki with Mpo behind me on the camera. So we got very lucky because we've been trying to find cheetah on the southern part of the reserve, but lucky enough we haven't found those cheetahs, and look what we found for you. We've just found some elephants now. They're grazing. Looks like a small herd of elephants on the southern part of the reserve. We're just going to have a look at these animals. If you look to our left, there's one young one, looks like a young bull. If you look carefully, you can see, if you look at his tusks, unfortunately he's gone behind the bush. Let's hope he comes back onto the road. Otherwise I was going to talk about his tusks. But you see, if you look at the one in front of us, that's the female, just grazing the grass there. The direction where they're heading, they're going slightly southeast. There is a water hole there. They might be going down to look for water as the sun is going up, and then that's what they'll do. Early morning they'll start grazing in the direction of water. But unfortunately, this Kruger Park Road south of us, there's other vehicles traveling past there. They may be hearing that noise, so that might make them change their direction. As you can see, the one that's coming back from the right, she was leading the way, and she sort of like turned because she had other vehicles traveling down that road. So let's see where they go for now. They might change direction. I was hoping that they get down to the water, so we were going to view them nicely and watch them drinking this morning. What I was going to talk about, Marcus, elephants, yes, they're not born with tusks, but at 4.5, 5 years, that's when they start showing their tusks, and then it's very hard for them to drink milk. Then they'll be weaned off by the mother, so they stay with the head, and the distance sort of like increase as they grow up. I'm just gonna reverse a bit, and looks like these animals are coming towards us. As you can see, while I was reversing, there were two babies there. They looked about the same age. Sometimes these animals can have twins, but those are very rare cases that will have twins. They can be just two young ones from two different mothers that are just happen to be traveling together and play together as well. So as I said earlier, this animal might change direction. They definitely have changed. They're not going towards that water hole where we're expecting them or hoping to see them drinking. So they definitely changed. They're going away. Instead of southeast, they're now going southwest. So that's very unlucky for us. So we're hoping to see them drinking by the water. Otherwise, yeah, so it's going to be really beautiful. We're just going to sit here and watch. Maybe if there's less noises in the direction where they were heading because of the private vehicles going into Kruger. As you know, or if you didn't know, that Ngala is a private reserve that's on the western boundary of Kruger Park. So there'll be vehicles traveling past here, but on the boundary, not inside the reserve. So that's what makes these animals change and move away from that area where we're expecting them to go and drink. See how much pile of grass that one has got. So they're very selective of what they eat. She's definitely not going to eat that whole pile. And it seems like disappearing into the bush, but there's one coming on top of the termite mound, which is going to be very interesting to watch here because she might stop and feed more on that grass on top of that mound, because that hill where she is, it's a termite mound, of which this grass that grows on top of these termite mounds, they very nutritious because the termites use the sand and saliva to build these mounds, and termites is one food source of protein for the local people. That's why the animals will like feeding on the grass that grows on top of these mounds. Even though you can't see the mound itself, it's covered with grass. So mostly the seeds will be deposited by animals. Wow, Lucy, this is a good question. I'm not 100% sure because these animals are not like the cats, lions and leopards, which are territorial. So elephants roam around, and they happen to be small family groups that group together and form one large herd. And sometimes they split as small families. Like I said, this looks like a small family group, but they will move in between us, Kruger, and the Timbavati, as we don't have fences anymore. That's been taken away a couple of years ago. So these animals tend to move around a lot between us, Kruger, and the Timbavati. So definitely, I'm not 100% sure on how many hares we have. But I know last statistics that I had 3-4 years ago, since they took the fences down, the numbers were increasing in Kruger, like between 20 and 30,000 elephants in Kruger. So it is a lot, but the hares, I'm not sure how many different hares that we have in Kruger Park. As you can
Graham, I'm just going to see, there's a very good place that I want to see if we can get good signal from there. That's where I'd like to go.
Welcome to dawn in the African bush.
How cool is this? Can you believe it?
Those cubs are now only 10 feet from us. Unbelievable.
Elephants chasing wild dogs chasing elephants. Pandemonium!
Watching how Wild Earth has grown since 2007 has been truly remarkable. On the 27th of April this year, Wild Earth will be turning 14, and we would love to hear from you. Please send us your own special birthday message, which we can share with the rest of the Wild Earth family. Maybe you can tell us why you started watching Wild Earth, what Wild Earth means to you, or you could just send us a very happy birthday. Don't forget, when you want to film yourself, to hold your phone sideways to get the best angle. When you are ready, you can email your videos through to birthday@wildearth.tv.
So in 1998, we had this idea to go and put a live web camera on a waterhole somewhere in the Sabi Sands next to the Kruger National Park. And I approached just about every single landowner, and everybody thought I was completely crazy until I met Yuri and Pippa Moorman.
We thought it was definitely a fun idea and a worthwhile thing to experiment.
And it immediately became a runaway success. And it gave people all around the world the opportunity to watch a little piece of Africa day and night. Back in 1998, it was the very early stages of the internet. And all we were able to do was to get a 30-second refreshing JPEG out of that camera. But over time, what we began to do is focus more and more on trying to develop this concept of giving people the opportunity to go on safari.
Even though we live just 500 meters up this hill, we still put the camera on to see what's happening.
Absolutely, we watch it ourselves.
My name is Taylor McCurdy and I work for Eco Training. I love hearing from all of the viewers. However, I particularly enjoy those of you who have been watching for a few years. Your questions are just so advanced and they really get me thinking. If you'd like to ask a question on Wild Earth, you need to register on our website. Once you've done that, head to the Live Safari page and submit your questions below the...
Look at the richness of this color. The bush never ceases to amaze me. We were coming to the end of our sort of walk. We wanted to start turning back and heading back towards the vehicle, and this bright red flower caught my eye, and I had to come and look at it. This is a dwarf coral tree, and they always seem to grow close to these drainage lines like you see behind me over here, and it's just beautiful. It's the bright color, first of all, just catches your eye, but then it's also filled with nectar. It attracts lots of bees, attracts lots of butterflies, and it's a native plant. It is native to this area, although it doesn't look like it. You don't often see this color in the bush, and they don't grow much larger than this, maybe a little bit larger, but not a whole lot in the bush larger than this. And now this one is actually starting to produce pods. Can you see here? All of these pods here used to be flowers. Not all of the flowers turned into pods, but those that were pollinated by the butterflies or bees are doing so. And these are often referred to as lucky bean trees, because if you look at these pods over here that I'm going to point out, you see how this is getting a bulbous look to it. Now, each of these pods will have 2 or 3 seeds inside, sometimes more, and when they're ripe, they are this beautiful red and black color, as red as the flowers, with a rich blackness on them as well, often used for beads and ornamentation, and it's considered quite lucky in some cultures. Very toxic, though. Often children are enticed by the color to put them in their mouths, and that's dangerous, because if you chew this seed, it's very toxic inside, and so it can cause you real concern. Luckily, the outside of the seed is very, very resistant to damage, and it's not often that people get poisoned, but it can kill you. It's that toxic. Okay, now the name in the scientific name is Erythrina Humana, and the Humana is referring to, I wasn't sure about it before, I did a bit of research. Humana refers to a guy called Abraham Hume, who was very famous because he actually grew a lot of exotic plants in his gardens in the UK, in England, and so this plant was named after him because it's one of the plants that he brought back, or was brought to him, and he cultivated it. But now look how interesting this is. I'm going to just push this little bit of a buffalo grass out the way. Look at the underside of this leaf. Look how aggressively spiked that is. This is not often browsed by animals, or it is a little bit, but not often, because look at the spines all over it. And these are not soft. These are very hard spines. So these will cause you also a great concern. So the tree has to protect itself. It is fed upon by a number of things, not least of which would be the brown-headed parrot. So these pods and the unripe seeds. Remember, when the seed is ripe, it's very toxic and it's got this hard resistant coating, but the unripe seeds are frequently consumed by brown-headed parrots, and that is really, really awesome. So a gorgeous little plant found in the bush if you're ever driving around. So the dwarf coral tree has flowers and leaves simultaneously, but the larger coral trees, I can't remember the scientific names, but they tend to only either have leaves or flowers. And that is a really spectacular thing to find. And they're also native to the area. I haven't seen any on Pride Lands, but they certainly occur around here. And that's wonderful to see. Something the size of this knobthorn that's behind us, growing with not a single green leaf on it, but covered, absolutely covered in these bright red flowers. Ooh. Nathan, often they are. Many plants are named after people who were somehow important to their description or their discovery, or that had big contributions to the field of botany. It's certainly the case. Sometimes they're named after areas where they're found. Madagascarensis, for example, Mozambicensis, Senegalensis, those kind of things. But yet many are named after the human beings that were integral to their description to science, which is really cool. I think this is one of my favorite plants. Actually, one of my favorite flowers, for sure. My favorite flower is the flame lily, of which there are also many of them here at Pride Lands, although this year I was unfortunate I didn't manage to find any on Pride Lands. But they love growing in these same areas. Okay, well, we're going to leave this beautiful dwarf coral tree now and start heading back in that direction, back towards the vehicle. And in the meantime, we'll send you over to Josh and Swallow.
So folks, it seems it's been a meerkat morning, and after our earlier conversation as to what is the largest family I've seen here on Tsolu, we seem to be finding more and more wild families. Now, whether or not that's just because we're noticing them more, or they're just closer to the road this morning, I'm not sure. But it is nice to be able to see so many. And obviously, at the moment, they are doing really well. There's a huge amount of food around, there's a huge amount of vegetation, so there's definitely no complaints on their side. I was just chatting to one of my colleagues and asked him what's the largest family he's seen. He reckons around 22. So they really do get quite large. This is a little bit of a more shy family than the one we were with earlier. But as you can see, also some young pups. So it's been a good breeding year for them, which is always good to hear. More time we spend with these guys, the more relaxed they'll become with the vehicle. At the moment, they're paying a lot of attention to us. Some nice ground squirrels there joining the party. So there have definitely been cases where families do have wars. They have a argument of a territorial boundary. Obviously, if one's foraging grounds are becoming less and less productive, they'll start moving further and further afield to try and find more food. And when they do, it's quite a sight. They have this little war dance where they almost lock their legs and bounce with their tails up, and they look really angry. And occasionally it does lead into full-on conflict, which we've seen happen with our Xhosa family of our habituated meerkats, particularly where when I started here, they were a much larger family, and we think they got into a fight with a neighboring family and they were split up. And they never did reunite. So we think those that did make it of the two separate halves sort of have just managed to carry on and build those families up again. But they definitely do get into quite intense fights, and like most things in nature, it's generally over food or mating rights. That head bobbing, just trying to see what are we up to. So these guys haven't gone too far from their burrow, which does make me wonder why. Could potentially be they saw us and headed for the closest burrow system. But they're definitely paying a lot of attention to us. They really are very cute. So Victor's asked, how does the hierarchy system work in meerkats? Now, the most senior female does all the breeding, and that's sort of the highest role, with the males fighting it out to see who breeds with her. And what will sometimes happen is if a female wants to breed but she's not winning in her own family, she might potentially leave her natal group and try and join another one. This behavior also will occur with the males. And this is how you stop inbreeding within the family as well. But you'll see the most senior female pretty much tells everybody what's going on and where they're going. If we look at our Mukala family in particular, that senior female is very obvious. She's a lot bigger and very round. And once she starts foraging away from the burrow, or if she starts cleaning, you see the rest sort of join in. So we think we're going to leave these meerkats, see what else we can find. For now, we're going to send you across to Dyke, the new guide at Ngala. Enjoy.
Yeah, as we said, we were going to try find the cheetahs on the south, but we haven't had any luck. But look what we found now. We were hoping to see those elephants we saw earlier drinking, but unfortunately we didn't. Lucky enough, we came around to the waterhole that we were meant to go to, and then we've just found a young elephant bull, which is part of that herd. So he's possibly trailing the herd from behind. As he finished drinking here, I think he's going to go up the hill and walk around and catch up with the herd. But as you can see, he's not a fully grown elephant bull. He's one of those who have just reached maturity, and then they'll start becoming a problem and they get pushed out by the metroc, and then he'll follow the herd from a distance. But even if he's by himself like this, he knows where they are. Like at some stage, he's going to catch up with them, maybe leave again. And then when time comes, he might join up with other big elephant bulls and then start becoming small bachelor groups. Every now and then they'll join up with the herd and travel together. As you can see, when I said earlier, once he's done, and then he'll go up the bank and move around. He'll go in a direction where we saw that herd, of which is south from here. So that looks like what he's going to do. And we're just going to wait and see which way he's going to go from here. But I definitely think he's going to go in the same direction where... Yeah, Adrian, that's a good question. These animals can change at any time. I've been chased many times by these animals, but not on foot in the vehicle. But it was still scary to be chased by such a big animal like that while you're in the vehicle, because you never know. It doesn't look angry now, but sometimes things come in his head and then he can just turn around and chase you. That's why we keep this distance, so if something happens, and then we're able to escape, to quickly drive away from him. Just watch him going up the bank. You can see he's taking it slowly. There he goes. See how difficult it's for him to go up the bank. He's using a lot of power to get up that hill. Stop and listen again. It's possibly to try pick up the scent or the sound from the rest of the herd, because these animals sometimes they can communicate by using the sound, which sounds like a stomach rumbling. Sometimes you're sitting and watching these elephants, you hear this, and then the others will answer him, and then he'll pick up the sound, because they can clearly pick up that sound like 4 kilometers away from each other. So he can easily go and find them. So he's going exactly in the direction where we last saw them. So we're just going to sit here, because he's going to go down the road where we're going to go, because the road goes like that and then cut off in front of where he is. So we might get to see him again walking down the road to try and find the rest of his herd. Unless he decides to go off by himself, but he's definitely going to go in that direction. This is a sort of area where you'll find lots of them in December, January, because if you look on the horizon from his right, there's 2 big trees, and then all the way to the left, there's lots of big trees. Those are called the marula trees. Those are the trees that elephants get so excited when the berries or the fruits come onto season. So it's lots and lots of marula trees around here. So look for elephants. You come to the south, and then you'll see lots of elephants feeding off the marula fruits from these trees that you can see up on the hill. Yeah, we're gonna stick with this elephant and see where he goes, and then we're gonna go over to Mike and see what Mike has got for us. See you guys later.
So we just on our way back to the vehicle now from the bushwalk. And you start to just get into the rhythm of the walk. You're looking around, but you've kind of sort of decided that you're heading back. And always something catches your eye. So just as we're walking, I just noticed these beautiful African wild violets, sometimes known as carpet flowers. So you can just see there just how bright and vivid these colors are. It's absolutely spectacular. Now, we often find these wild violets close to drainage lines, usually sandy, rocky areas. This one's actually growing on some clay soil, so it might be a slightly different species to the one that I'm normally seeing. But it's really, really beautiful. You can see those gorgeous violet colors. And this is a cool plant, particularly because it's often home to what's called crab spiders. I don't know if you've ever seen a crab spider before, but they can become many, many different colors, different species, different colors. And they're almost always associated with one flower or one plant at a time. And what they do is they actually live, or they don't live inside, but they'll spend most of their time just inside, if I could point, inside the middle of the flower in there. Now, I can't see one right now, but if you have to find a bunch of these, and usually where there's one, there's many more. There's actually a second one just over here. I don't know if you can see it from where you are, Johan. There's a second wild violet, or sometimes also called carpet flower, just over here. Now, I actually did see a spider on this one, but it was very tiny and it moved when I sort of tried to get closer. So I don't know where it is now, but I don't think it was a crab spider. It could have been, but I'm not sure. It was so quick. But yeah, it's an amazing plant to see. So if you're ever walking in the bush, also look out for these wild violets and get close up to them. They sometimes have these little spiders inside, which are ambush predators who will wait for an insect like a fly to come to get to some of the nectar, and the spider will catch them. Really, really cool. All right, well, this is the last from us probably. We're going to head to the car very soon, and then we'll be on our way back to HQ. But in the meantime, we'll send you over to Lauren.
Oh, crab spiders are just my favorite. Wonderful little critters. Now, I found the sleepiest animal in the bush this morning. The award goes to Mr. Monitor Lizard. Not Steve or I, because, well, as Steve mentioned earlier, we refuse to go on drive without coffee. I'm not sure it's actually physically possible for me to do a morning drive without coffee. Even when we have a power cut and there's no lights and there's no electricity, you get on that gas stove. Yes, you feel very historical doing that, but you get on that stove and you boil the water before drive. Coffee. But this is someone who has not had the coffee, and it is, of course, the water monitor, not the rock monitor. Also called the Nile monitor, and it's the largest of the two species, but it can be very confusing because the rock monitor is actually stockier, heavier build, larger snout, but not as long. So some people say the rock monitor is larger because it's more chunkier, but it's actually the Nile, the water monitor, that's the longest one. And it's actually speculated that monitor lizards in general sort of swam. They can all swim. All species of monitor lizards across the world can swim. And it's speculated that they swam and island-hopped from Asia and Australia over to Africa. And that's how we have the water monitor and the rock monitor. We're actually at Gowrie Dam, and the impalas behind us are having an absolute party. It's confusing now that I think the rutting season is starting to really pick up and take full steam. And the males, of course, are causing chaos. Sounds like alarm calls. It stops you in your tracks. But then you realise, well, they're not alarmed at all. the male is just causing chaos. So we may turn around in just a moment and give you a view of all the drama of the impalas. But Gowrie Dam is still looking as full as ever. This tree that Morgan was just showing you where the water monitor is lying was completely exposed, was never touching the water like this, and now it's almost submerged. But you can see the water levels are dropping, marginally, but they are. There's parts of this tree that were definitely underwater a few weeks ago. Any of you are saying it's such a perfect spot. I don't know if you mean the dam or where the water monitor is lying, but both are pretty perfect. Sadly, the hyena dens were not active. And it's not for the lack of trying, I can assure you. These impala are all very alert. I don't know if they're just looking for the male. It's okay, Morgan. I think what we'll do is we'll turn around and try and get a glimpse of them. They're unsettled. The water buck were unsettled. Oh, that didn't sound very healthy. So as I try and get a view of these impala for you, we're going to send you across to Steve.
Welcome back, everybody. We're just bumbling through the middle of Djuma. We haven't had any luck with any further leopard tracks. It's all right. It's been a lovely, cool, fresh morning. Taking a nice, slow cruise home.
Steve, did you really have enough coffee this morning? What just happened? We've lost him. He's vanished. Don't worry, we'll inject him with coffee when he gets back. Sorry, I just want to check something. Morgan, is there anything on the road, or am I? There's nothing on the road. Seeing things. Okay, this is the impala I was talking about, or the herd of impala, should I say. They're right next to the dam cam, so if you are watching the dam cam, you'll be able to see them or hear them. But I think there's a male here who is just causing havoc. This lot seem particularly relaxed. Let me try and see if I can get a little bit higher. The grass is extremely long. Can you get them from here, Morgan? These are the females that were not happy earlier, and they were actually stotting, running away from this male. And that's what happens. The shorter day lengths at the start of April, which is exactly where we are right now, set a huge chain of events. And it's really fascinating because obviously it starts with an environmental cue, and that environmental cue is the shorter day lengths. So when that starts to take place, it will just sort of spiral a whole chain of events for the males. It definitely starts with the males, with impala, and that's why the females are not happy, because the biological changes haven't happened for them yet. So what normally happens is that the environmental cue sends signals to the males for testosterone to rise. So that's a biological cue that's causing the chemistry inside the body to change. And once those testosterone levels rise, the impala males, the rams, their behavior changes. And they generally tend to separate from the groups, separate from the herds, or their bachelor herds, or any sort of associations that they may have, and they start to rigorously compete with one another. And I think Trishala, when she had her little incident the other night, the males were fighting. One had been injured and sadly ran into the car because of his injuries. So the fighting between the males has already started, I believe, and this is when they become territorial. So it goes from environmental, biological, chemistry, behavioural. And then once they become territorial, that eventually dissolves once rutting season is over. It's a temporary territorial behaviour, and they will choose territories that have got good access to resources. They want the ladies to choose them, after all. And then they become very vocal, and this is what's confusing, because you think it's an alarm call, and it's not. It's just a male being very vocal, and he is, of course, signalling to other males, guys, chaps, this is my space. I know we were friends just a few weeks ago. We're not friends anymore, okay? And this is my space. Don't come nearby. It's a spatial arrangement tactic, really, for the males. That's why they become vocal. They will clash horns. They will fight to establish dominance. Now, it doesn't really always end in death. But sadly, the other night with Trishala, what had happened was one of the male's horns went into the other male's side, and it proved to be fatal. So they can die, they can kill each other. The females at this point are still probably very confused. What's going on with these guys? I mean, they were just really calm a few weeks ago. And basically, they get often sheep herded by the males, and it's called sheepdog herding. The males gather all the females together, and they try to maintain their little temporary harem. All of these females are mine. And then what happens, this behavioural change that's taking place in the males causes a biological change in the females. And it starts to induce estrus. And it's the behaviour of the males that's doing that to the females. And of course, estrus is very much hormonal, chemical, biological. Once that starts to take place in the females, then mating will occur naturally. So it's a really interesting chain of events that's about to happen in impalas. I know we see impalas a lot out here, definitely more than we see leopards. But it's really fascinating just to go through all the changes that are sort of slowly taking place right now. And that's why the females are probably a little bit confused. I would be too. Why are these males acting so silly? So I think we're just going to head on to quarantine and see if we get lucky up there. On the 27th of April, Wild Earth will be turning 14 years old, and we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for all of you. And to celebrate, we will be finishing the beautiful book that we started last year that looks at the history so far. But we do need you to be part of it. Please submit your most memorable sighting, or what Wild Earth means to you, or even just your name and a comment to be included inside the book. Head over to the website to add your name and reserve your copy. And a big thank you to all of you who have contributed to the book so far. For all of you Wild Earth explorers who bought plaques, today is the day that you will make your very first safari on our vehicle. Because we are quite remote here in the bush, they have taken some time to arrive, but I am happy to say they are here and they look great. Marcel has spent the day attaching them. Let's take a look.
Before we mount these nameplates, we just give a light dusting of green paint. This is to better match them to the color of the vehicles and also to decrease the reflectivity of the metal and thereby staying sensitive towards the animals.
Bumble crew. Hopefully, Dan Black, Liesel Apgar, and Alicia George. Well, it's time for me to get ready to take you all on a safari. Let's go.
My name is Taylor McCurdy and I work for Eco Training. I love hearing from all of the viewers. However, I particularly enjoy those of you who have been watching for a few years. Your questions are just so advanced and they really get me thinking. If you'd like to ask a question on Wild Earth, you need to register on our website. Once you've done that, head to the live safari page and submit your questions below the
Well, folks, we're coming to that time of day where it's coming to the end, and I think we can safely say it's been quite an epic game drive on Wild Earth TV across the different properties, from digging for water to feeding peregrine falcons to a new guide joining the family here at Wild Earth. It's always an exciting time, but it does eventually come to an end. I think the highlights for the morning, especially from my side here at Tswalu Kalahari, was that feeding Lana and the question, are they going to share? Aren't they going to share? But there's not always an answer, and this is one of those ones we're going to ponder. So we thought we'd stop for a second, just chat about what we'd heard this morning, what we'd seen, and just have a little bit of a look here at the Coronaberg. There's definitely no shortage of beauty in the wilder places of South Africa. Always love the questions. So we've just had one from Timothy asking, why are there no hippos in Tswalu? So Timothy, we are a semi-arid reserve. We're in the Kalahari. We don't have enough or big enough permanent water sources for hippo. And come the winter months, definitely not enough food. Your hippo is a grazer, and the grass content here in the winter is very, very low and of minimal nutrition value. So with the amount a hippo needs to eat, it just would not survive here. As well as we have incredible temperature extremes. I personally have experienced minus 12 Celsius here, and temperatures of over 40 Celsius here. So it's a massive temperature range. So apart from just the water and the food issue, I don't know how a hippo would enjoy feeling like a popsicle at minus 10 during the night. There's more than once we've got into waterholes in the winter months, and there is a layer of ice across the top of them, almost a centimeter thick. Starting to warm up nicely here at Tswalu. I think that breeze is keeping it just temperate enough, but it has all the signs of being a beautiful, scorching day in the green Kalahari. It's been a very interesting drive, from meerkats to chameleons that are able to see in spectrums we don't. It's been a lot of small stuff this morning, from our Lana to our Ellies and that, and I do hope that this afternoon we'll be able to share some of our big cats with you. If not here at Tswalu, then definitely with some of our other properties. But I do hope you'll join us. Remember, it's channel 184 on DSTV. We're also live on YouTube. And we always look forward to having you join us on a live safari in the African bushveld. I got the channel wrong. I do apologize. It is 183 and not 184. So definitely don't want to get that wrong. I'm sure I caused a chuckle or two there. But we look forward to sharing the beauty of these wild places with you live in the African